Hello everybody, welcome to Sonic Talk episode 672, recorded today live Wednesday the 9th of June in the summery sun. I do apologise for my occasional pff, because I've got a noise gate and an air conditioning unit that's very noisy, so I'll be just going pff every once in a while. In fact, many of my guests will. Maybe that's the show title, pff. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the show progresses. We'll see how the show progresses. Anyway, welcome. This is the Sonic Talk podcast. We talk about all things music technology. A few housekeeping things out of the way. You can listen to us on Google Podcasts, Alexa. You can ask Alexa to play Sonic Talk podcast, and that will work too. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're on Spotify now as well. You can for the audio versions. We're streaming live on Facebook Live. We're streaming also to Discord live stage server thing, which I don't fully understand, I'll be honest, but I know it's working, or at least I think it's working. I have to connect to it. I think there it is. I can see it's working. There's nobody there, but I'm there, and you can listen to this if you go there. But you're probably watching this either YouTube Live, Facebook Live, or Twitch, which is what we also do. I want to say thank you very much to our friends over at the YouTube chat room, also the IRC chat room, all the usual crowd there, Discord. We've got here, this aggregates all of that stuff together. And I want to say, last week I was trying to do this, and now I've got all the data I need. So if you do fancy giving us a super sticker, that's the last super sticker on YouTube, or even a super chat, you're welcome to, and I can throw up your little lower third there as a big thank you to you. I've finally got that working. So all the people that have supported, if you do donate to that, what that's going towards is a kind of Sonic Talk party drinks fund that will happen. Someone's ringing me. I think I'll turn that off. And maybe a secretary. No, it'd be a Sonic Talk party drinks fund. That means when we finally get together, we can have a little bit of a party and say raise a glass to all our supporters and thank you. So I think I've covered most things. Oh yes, if you want to support us on Patreon, just put you up there because we put the pre-show up on Patreon, and also all our videos now are going up ad-free on Patreon, which means you don't have to watch them via YouTube. They're all on Vimeo embed. If you want to support us, you head to Sonicstate at patreon.com/Sonicstate /Sonicstate, and you can support us there. Very reasonable prices. There you go, $2 or $4.50. Well, that's pounds actually. Sounds better. Anyway, all the housekeeping out of the way. Let's say hello to everybody. We'll start with Mr. Robbie Bronnimann, who's there in a studio somewhere. I don't know where he is, but there's a drum kit involved.
In Ireland.
In Ireland, a studio in Ireland. How are you, Robbie? You well?
Very well, thank you. Yeah.
Are you actually producing right now as we speak?
Until about 10 minutes ago, when I suddenly realised the time I was, yeah.
Wow, okay, that's dedication. I hope you saved your work before you
I did,
joined.
very carefully.
Excellent.
2 places.
I'm glad to hear that. Excellent. Well, lovely to have you, Robbie. I don't know where we can find you nowadays because you were working on an EP, but I don't know if that got kind of slowed down.
No,
because of COVID.
I'm still working on that. It'll be coming out later in the year.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. Glad to hear that.
Spoiler.
Yes, spoiler. That other voice you heard there, of course, the voice of BT, who's joining us from his studio, which seems to have he's got a very good wallpaper provider. I'm sure none of those synths are real, apart from the ones close to him. The rest is just pictures that he sticks on the wall, right? BT, of course, artist, producer, technologist, all those things. How are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, I'm great, man. It's great to be with you guys. Absolutely. Yeah, the spoiler was Robbie's album is amazing. EP album, whatever he's calling it. It's incredible. Yeah, great to be with you guys.
Well, I'm glad to hear you. We're going to talk to BT a lot more a little later because he's just released a project which has got some really interesting aspects to all aspects of it. So we'll get onto that. But we'll also say hello to Mr. Gaz Williams, who's over there in Bristol in his studio. How are you doing, Gaz? You well?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Been super busy, which is cool. But yeah, glad to be here.
Gaz, of course, can be found on his own YouTube channel, which is Gaz Williams. I think I've got a link here somewhere. Yeah, I can throw that up. There we go. And I presumably, have you got a show tonight?
I've got a show tonight, and tonight I'm going to be looking at the Plethora from TC Electronic, which is a... But the question is it any good for tabletops or desktop use?
Is that the multi-effects thing? It's the multi-effects thing?
Yes. It's all the pedals, isn't it? All the pedals in one.
All the pedals in one. Spoiler alert, it's not good for desktop use.
Oh. All right, well,
Find out why later. But I mean, it's good. it's good. It's an interesting thing, but yes. So tonight's show's going to focus on that.
Okay, I'll take you a TC and I'll raise you a time tosser.
I've got a time tosser.
I've got a time tosser.
What name that is?
Here it is. It's got to be the best name. You know what, BT? I'm not entirely sure. I think it's a sort of real-time slicer / looper / thing.
Stutter edit thing in one box.
Stutter edit in a box, but it's called time tosser, which I think perhaps.
Which is a funny name.
It's a funny name. As we oh how we laughed. Yeah,
depending on where you are in the world.
That's true.
That means something very different to you guys.
Oh yes. God,
it does indeed. So anyway, we'll get on to that a bit later on. But that's all the fun. There was something else I was going to say. I can't remember what it is now. It's completely escaped me. But I'm sure it will come back to me. What? Yeah, sorry, it's too hot in here. My air conditioning is too far away because it's not silent enough to be close. I think it's like a $5,000, job for the 2 months of the year when you need it. It's not really worth it, But anyway, that's beside that. I'll survive. So, where should we start? I think basically we should probably start with where we were originally going to go, which was basically. BT has just released the Genesis.JSON, which I've got various. I think this one is live. So is it all right if I unmute it? Am I going to get busted if I
No, please do. Yeah, okay. Definitely do.
So this is sort of a live stream of this is my explanation of it, and then BT will tell you what it really is. So as far as I can see, as I understand it anyway, it's a piece of live coding that produces a 24-hour cycle of music that can be many things. It's not always the same. The artwork is generated also, so all the combinations. So it's a piece of kind of digital performance art which is in a constant state of flux. It's almost like a sort of concept album. The other thing that's very interesting about this is it's been sold as an NFT piece of digital art, which is another thing entirely. But first of all, I'll see whether I was right. So BT, have I got that kind of right? I mean, tell me I'm sort of halfway there at least.
You do. There's a lot of nuance. So by design, what Genesis.JSON is it's intended to be a one-of-one piece of software for a person to own.
Right.
And this piece of software is a 24-hour art and music installation that lives on something that we call the permaweb, which is a part of, it's a type of blockchain. And it's nodally redundant, meaning there are millions of copies of this spread across many different nodes. And so this piece will exist far beyond my lifetime. And that's made possible by a technology called Arweave. So this 24-hour piece of art and music is actually 17 pieces of music that I wrote. Yeah. And I took those pieces of music and I chunked them down into very small pieces and resequenced them. There's 15,000 audio and visual events that happen over a 24-hour cycle. So it's 1,000 lines of code. It took 11 months to. It was sold on the Ethereum blockchain via super rare set records, which is just crazy. And but it's there for everyone to enjoy as well too. So it's interesting, the whole kind of digital art and non-fungible token space and what's happening there. And I'd love to speak to it. But that's what the piece is. So
well, that's fascinating. So when creating it, I mean, because I know that when you work, because you've done music for games as well, is it a similar kind of principle whereby things have to be able to overlap and coexist and work across each other? So in the same way that, like, maybe using the Unity engine or whatever, I mean, I'm talking at a high level, so you created something that can overlap and can kind of breathe in and out of itself. So you end up with this thing that may not be what you originally composed, but made of bits that you have put together, that's brought together in a unique way by the code. Am I getting that kind of almost right?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it's a very sophisticated scheduler or a very simple NLE and DAW. You can think of it as either way. So the audio and the video is non-contiguous. So the video stream is not bound to audio, and I like to think of it as 8 tracks of audio because it was such a 5D chess game sort of making this, but it in fact is as many streams as you can accommodate. And again, it's streaming from the blockchain, kind of like a BitTorrent, so it's sharded, Geal's client side on your computer. Some of the most special things about this piece of software is that, piece of digital art is that it actually has a sleep cycle. First NFT ever that puts itself to sleep at night. At 9 p.m., it has a shutdown cycle. It goes to sleep. At 3 a.m., it begins dreaming. And at 9 a.m., it wakes itself back up. And it's rotating through these 17 pieces of music. Part of what, too, is really special about it and was so cool to release it is over the first 48 hours, we had fans in Australia saying like, oh my God, I just saw it wake up, or I saw it go to sleep, or I saw the 6/8 house music in the afternoon. Like, people were discovering all these things about it. I mean, there's so much cool stuff about it, but another thing that's really cool is I coded a birthday message that only the buyer has these kind of administrative privileges over the piece. And so our buyer, Pranksy, he's entered his birthday. And so once a year, everyone, everywhere in the world will see this birthday message from me to him in their web.
Interesting. I mean, I'm just going to bring it back up again and see what it's currently playing. I noticed there's quite a lot, at least the parts I've listened to, there's some beautiful, is it a real Rhodes? It sounds like there's some lovely Rhodes notes, these sort of almost just duophonic lines that you're running in it. I'm not hearing it at the moment because I can't feel it'll be what it is, and quite a lot of bandpass synth. So am I, is that one track in particular that I'm listening to there, or what?
There's definitely some live Rhodes for sure, that which lives in the other room, but yeah, just everything in this room is in this piece. I mean, from Jupiter 8, Prophet 5, Matrix 12, CP7, DC. I mean, you know, to field recordings, bowed guitars, like recording crickets in the woods. It's all in there. The sleep cycle at night is very meditative and ambient. It's beautiful. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. when it wakes up. And the craziest thing is you'll experience it differently because we're web scraping network time. So it goes by your local time. So anywhere you are in the world, people experience the piece differently.
Wow, this sounds like a labor of love. I mean, it sounds like something that must have taken you an extremely long time to put together. Like you said, did you say it was over 3 years? I mean, when you started it, did you have this in mind, or did you just have the 17 tracks in mind and it kind of became what it became?
No, this was completely by design. I mean, certainly Robbie knows this. I'm a dry board Venn diagram kind of guy. So I start like high concept and then just put the pedal down, and it's kind of as it takes to get there. So this one was a month development cycle. It was designed as a piece of software to have single person ownership, but be enjoyed by everyone. So that is completely by design. It sort of goes without saying, but it's the code base itself, I'm continuing to develop. So there's probably 40 to 50% more that we built that's not deployed in this initial piece of art. So I will do follow-up pieces to this that are equally, I mean, if not crazier. So it's amazing. You know, it's funny, just really pushed back off the canvas and zoomed out. I think that there's a lot of musicians that have heard about non-fungible tokens and they think, what's that? And, or how does that apply to me? And it's really pretty simple conceptually what it is. Prior to the time we're living in, no one could ever have ownership over a single digital asset. So if you think about something like a WAV file, go back to kind of, torrenting and Napster. It's a WAV file can be equally distributed to everyone. What's different about blockchain, art, music, programmatic things is an NFT is just basically, you could think of it very simply, it's a token, a pointer that says this file is the real one. And a person is buying the provenance and ship of this token, which references an original file. So,
okay.
So people say, like, why on God's green earth would anyone do that if I can see the thing on my own? I think a really great metaphor for that is just take a famous painting like the Mona Lisa. You can go to the Louvre, you can see it. You can, right now, we could Google it, look at it, pictures of it all over the internet. I actually have a picture of it on my phone from years ago going to see it. It's readily available for everyone to see. However, it's owned by a single person or consortium of people. So it's the digital equivalency of that. It provides ownership of digital assets. And why this is going to be important in the future is not sort of readily apparent. As augmented reality becomes a part of our daily lives, right? If it's Google that gets that right, if it's Apple that gets that right, what NFTs are is we're skinning the next layer down of material reality. Your kitchen table is going to be boring, your shoes are going to be boring, your outfit's going to be boring, your scent will be a color, and NFTs will be assets with utility that we take with us into these virtual spaces, be it VR, XR, AR. So it's remarkable what's happening in this space. And I would just recommend for musicians that aren't aware of it, it's something that really warrants looking at.
I've got one quick question, which is, so if that person, if I or whoever buys the NFT of a piece of digital music or WAV file that I create, are they then the recipients of any revenue that music creates? Is that the kind of, is there a transfer of rights in that way? And therefore, you know, if this or some elements of this get synced to a soundtrack or whatever, whoever paid, you know, Pranksy paid whatever he paid for it, he gets the revenue from that. Is that how it works as well?
So it can or it cannot. It's totally down to the artist. And there's what's so cool about crypto and the DeFi space and blockchains in general, especially as they relate to artistic works, that's totally defined by the artists themselves.
So it's like the license.
On the Ethereum blockchain, there's something called a smart contract. And I mean, lawyers can kiss their careers goodbye if they don't learn how to program. I literally have been in this conversation with some very kind of high profile payment attorneys. So it's a bit of executable code. It's written in a language called Solidity, and you can have anything do anything. That's the coolest thing. It has utility. Something I want to say that's not an answer to your question, but it's important for musicians to understand. Okay, when you sell a CD, right, you know, and people still do buy CDs. I have fans that buy CDs, and they'll keep it for a couple years. They'll rip it to their computer, and then they'll take it to a used CD store. And they'll sell it to that person to resell it, and the artist is not remunerated in any of those subsequent transactions. These smart contracts that I'm talking about, there's something called secondary market sales. So when my piece resells someday, if our buyer wants to resell it, I'll receive 15% of the resale fee.
Right.
Forever.
Okay.
And in fact, my great grandchildren will continue to receive it in perpetuity. So there's this resale functionality that can be embedded in smart contracts. But to answer your question about ownership, that's down to the user. Right. You can decide that.
I suppose it could be. It could be. That's the thing I was curious about, because it could be, because then that would make things, you know, for the likes of you or I who don't have the kind of profile that you've got, you know, it's like, well, if I come up with a little ditty and I go, yeah, sure, take it away. You know, you can have it for $100 and then it's yours forever, whether it makes sense. I know there are probably other questions coming. You know,
question. If the person who buys the you know, the asset, in terms of, like you said, like, you know, a group of conglomerate own the Mona Lisa, what do those people get the benefit of being able to display it in a far greater resolution than anybody else, or what do they actually own tangibly, which makes their experience of owning it a worthwhile thing compared to everybody else who can just view it? or listen to it on the internet?
That's a great question. I mean, these bring up these huge questions of what is ownership. Also, too, what is money? You know, people struggle a lot with the concept of, you know, crypto in general, be it Bitcoin or Ethereum or the other blockchain and DeFi technologies that we have. And they say, well, that's just like some fake thing that's on the internet. It's like, well, fiat, what we call traditional money, isn't been backed by gold since the 70s. So it's actually money with utility. And not answering your question, I just get excited talking about this stuff. So basically, the answer is it down to, again, the individual artist. So for some of the projects I'm working on now, there's a type of programmatic ability called unlockable content. So you can sell a non-fungible token that comes with embedded assets that no one else can see or have access to. And so, for example, an audio-focused non-fungible token project that I'm working on, I'm doing exactly what you're asking, Robbie, like 192, you know, lossless audio, like the whole thing, right? And everyone else will get to enjoy it as like a high-resolution MP3. But honestly, it warrants like kind of stretching the way that we think about ownership in a way. People that are interested in this, especially collectors, you know, traditional art collectors, music collectors, they're not bothered. They want to own the original. And this is a way to have provenance and provable ownership, like a certificate of authenticity in the art world over a work. And it's theirs and they own it.
Right, it's a similar sort of thing. Gaz, I know we were talking before the show. One of the things that is kind of also fairly critical is you know, as we're seeing now, there's a lot of energy required to maintain and create the blockchain. I mean, this is a sort of, and this is a separate issue effectively, but it's still very valid, I think.
It is valid, and I mean, there are a few alternatives, aren't there? I mean, is it green Art Gnome claims to be a green NFT, and you know, so there are sort of initiatives to try and move NFTs out of the kind of greenhouse gas emissions kind of fiasco that they currently are. I mean, based on, you know, well, not just NFTs, but, you know, crypto. I mean, we're in this transition, aren't we, in the 21st century into a greener, more sustainable kind of energy. And I feel that sort of, you know, maybe NFTs are maybe unfairly being accused of being, you know, greenhouse gas kind of giants.
Not very eco. Yeah.
Not very eco. But I think this is we're in transition, aren't we? I mean, this is a kind of transition thing. And the underlying idea of NFTs is interesting. And I think it's kind of possibly a little bit frustrating that it is so tied in with this ecological aspect. But I mean, that is so hugely important. Greenhouse gases are, you know, pose the biggest threat to, you know, humankind. So I'm pretty torn on it, if I'm honest. I mean, you know, in years to come, it will be the norm. I'm fairly sure about that. So, you know, and BT's been obviously very pioneering, which is always great. Yeah, confused. Call me confused, because that's what I am. Not sure.
I'd love to get you unconfused.
Please do. Help me out.
So I can't wait. So there's no way to sugarcoat this. This is an actual myth propagated by centralized financial institutions, because cryptocurrency is an existential threat to their existence. Okay? So I want to lead with that piece. Any carbon footprint to anything is too much. Okay? I want to lead with that other idea. Okay? But it's very interesting that this, and it's a myth too. I'm going to load you up with white papers after this. So 2% of the overall carbon footprint is from internet technologies in general. 0.02% of that is all blockchains combined, every NFT. So YouTube is a significantly greater existential threat to our global carbon footprint than all blockchains combined. And I can prove it to you like through white papers and stuff, but it's very interesting that this myth has been pushed out to the artistic community because we care. We're a group of people that are actually sensitive to these kind of issues. We really care about these things, and we should all care about it, but particularly artists are very sensitive to these kinds of social issues, environmental issues. I know I am, I know my friends are. So again, any carbon footprint is too much. The great news, like you said, is some of the most brilliant people in the world are working on solutions that they're called layer 2 solutions to the blockchain that are literally have like 1/10,000th of the environmental impact that the current layer 1 solutions like Ethereum do. And it's all based on something called proof of work, because basically what happens is before something's entered into the ledger, we're asking multiple nodes of redundancy to solve a really hard math problem. And so that takes, kilowatts per hour of power, right? Another big misnomer is that mining has this horrific environmental impact. Crypto mining, so like Bitcoin mining, Ethereum mining, 75% of miners are using environmentally friendly power sources like geothermal, wind power, solar power. So there's a tremendous amount of misinformation that's gotten seeded to people like us, the arts community, because we really care about this stuff. We should care about it. But it's funny, I hear this a lot from friends of mine that are English. My friend Tim Exile, who you guys probably know.
Yeah, I interviewed him not long ago, actually, in fact, just the other day.
He's brilliant. And so Tim and I had this conversation. He's one of the smartest people I know. He's all these amazing, invented the mouth and all these things for native instruments and now runs Endless. And so I was telling him some of these things about blockchain, and he's one to, trust but verify. And so he went away, he did his research, and he came back and he was like, holy crap, you're right. Like, this is an actual lie that's being told to artists. So so don't take my word for it. Just do research about it. And again, if it's something that's important to you, like it is to me, come participate. There's smart people working on these things to improve them. A platform like Hicketnunk, which is using the Tezos blockchain, is like practically nothing. And it's a layer 2 solution. So these things will get better. Gaz, your point is really well taken. Okay. I hear that. It's a concern to me too, but it's not what is being sold to us. It's important to know
Okay,
that.
I'm going to take a little bit of a break there, because I know for a lot of people this is sort of massive information overload. But so let's just have a little bit of a break from ISE-nin, and you can think about the music projects you're going to be doing while you watch
to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse iZotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the iZotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. We'll also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
And of course, if you're so inclined, you can also head over to iZotope.com/sonictalk to get hold of 10% saving. Use the code SONIC10 at checkout and you save 10%, including on the $49 11 plugin community appreciation bundle, I might add. So if you want to save big, go for that. Right, I'm going to switch things over a bit. I think we've because we've had so much. Yeah, okay, Gaz, if you're quick, because I want to get onto some music stuff too.
Well, this was related to music, and moving all of the other issues aside for the moment, and I was thinking about how ISRC codes, as a way of kind of stamping, ownership into a digital file, has never been a totally kind of transparent process in terms of, something, when you render a finished mix and, that ISRC code, where does it get embedded, which code is embedded into it, etc., etc. And, the point of ISRC obviously being to track the ownership for kind of, copyright and also for, royalties and the like. And I was just kind of thinking about that in terms of like NFTs, whether, once you finish your mix and it's ready, mixed and mastered, that, this idea that it gets indelibly stamped for history as with the ownership and all of that kind of detail at the start, and with all the kind of royalty splits and everything built into something right from the start. All of the good stuff, all of the people and all the contributors, all fairly distributed into this ownership that's embedded into it, and it's is that a positive spin on this? Is that something that
sounds like it?
That was my thought. I know we didn't want.
I totally get that. And rather than come back to that, I mean, I think that's a really powerful and important point. That's how I sort of understood it, and it's down to how those mechanisms that can then kind of retrieve that information and distribute it, which kind of rather makes world record companies and publishing companies a little bit obsolete in the end.
Totally obsolete.
Yes.
Just really quickly, guys, check out Audius. They're working on exactly what you're talking about. And believe you me, we're looking at a future where out of your DAW, you're going to mint a piece of music with royalty splits and everything baked into a smart contract indelibly, as you said, for all time. And everyone is fairly remunerated wherever that piece of music may go.
That sounds great, but what happens if you make a typo or cock it up or don't, because that happens. We're all capable of it. We're mixing the music. We're not necessarily writing the terms of the contract. What happens if? Can you then amend it and change it afterwards? Because you go, actually, hold on a minute, because you went to a publisher and they have a lawyer and everybody looked at the piece of paper and then it gets referred. There's multiple points of checking within that. I know it kind of maybe inflates the whole process a lot, but that actually helps you not get it wrong in the first place. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And now it's hard for me not to jump to AI, because I see a world where these smart contracts are executed by redundant forms of recursive neural networks, convolution guided neural networks, and completely and totally separate out the middleman. It's going to end. That's a finite thing.
Right. Interesting. Well, I'm not.
It's a hazard for dyslexic people, isn't it?
That's right. Now back to Time Tosser.
Yeah, well, I totally. But this is. I mean, we could. I'm torn. Half the chat room are going, "This is really fascinating. We need to talk about it more," and half of them are going, "Is this about music technology?" So, we could probably go. Maybe we'll think about doing a special about this. We can get in a bit deeper and sort of decide and explore some of these things, because I think it's a fascinating subject, and it really has a lot to. It's like a quantum shift in thinking of how stuff moves forward, and I totally get that. But let me see. Right, that's what I was looking at. This was the new Black Corporation JP8. This ISE-nin, which is essentially, I don't know if you know, Black Corporation are famous for making these big either kit or built the Decos Dream, which is the CS80. There's also the I can't remember what that one's called. Xerxes, the Kimji, the Elka Synthex. Yeah, there's quite a lot of these kind of big. They're sort of tackling the big polysynths, and there's news that, which I found via Synth Anatomy, that the JP8 is next. And it seems like such an odd. I mean, it's like, how come this has taken so long? I'm going to come to you first, Robbie, because you are obviously working with Howard Jones on a regular basis, who is famously. I don't think he doesn't lug one around anymore. It's not like he's because of the impracticality of it.
It's currently not working, actually. It's currently not working. But no, it's funny because I shuttled this across to BT the other day, And his response was, he doesn't think it will ever be the same. He doesn't think it'll possibly be the same as the original. But you know, I mean, everyone. I mean, it's the holy grail, isn't it? Really, it's one of the one of the big ones that everybody wants. You know, we got the Prophet 5 back now, and all these things. This is like one of the ones people are like chomping at the bit for.
True.
You know?
I suppose the thing is, again, with this, I mean, because we had the Boutique, which was obviously only 4 voices and teeny tiny. This is bigger, but it's still not got the largesse of the JP8. Is that kind of what you were getting at there, BT? It's the physical experience as well, right?
So I hate to rain on everybody's parade about this one here, but we're talking about my favorite synthesizer. It's my favorite synth of all time ever, okay? I've got a Rev 2, I've got a Rev 3. They sound totally different, the 12-bit to the 14-bit ones. So I will admit completely my snobbery as it relates to the Jupiter 8. It's my favorite synth of all time. That said, Black Corporation guys are amazing. I have their Elka Synthex clone, and it's ridiculous. I can't believe how good it is. Here's the thing, just again, sort of push back off the canvas. What makes these synths so magical and that can't be replicated in software is all of these synths from that time period sound really different. You can have a bad one or you can have a good one. You can have one that the caps are aged in a certain way, you know, or the power supply winds, and some that are perfectly calibrated. I mean, you play 10 OBXs, they sound wildly different. It's the same with Jupiter 8s. So I'm very skeptical because of that. And also, too, look at the size of it, like the support circuitry. And that's like the thermal conditions in these instruments have a lot to do with their sound. Believe it or not, it sounds really nerdy, but it really does. Okay, I'm skeptical but hopeful. If it's great, I told Robbie I'm going to fill my bathtub up with them. I want infinity of them. If it's great. My favorite synth ever, but skeptical.
Did you have the you know, the rack mount Jupiter 8? Was it the 80? You know, the MKS 80.
Oh, the MKS 80. Yeah.
I had one.
Did you ever have one of those? Because that attempted to put a Jupiter 8 in a rack, didn't it?
That's true.
So I'm terrible. But I'll say it. So the MKS 80 actually has a different filter type. It's like supposed to be a Jupiter 8. It's not. Yeah. I mean, if you go read, what's a great website? You guys know it. That, you know, does all the comparisons of all the different...
Vintage Synth Explorer or the...
That's it.
Yeah.
Vintage Synth Explorer. You can read about... I never got on with the MKS 80. I'm a huge JX10 fan, so I love the MKS 70. But the MKS 80 never had the magic to me of a Jupiter 8. I told you guys, I'm snobby. It's the one synth I'm so particular about. So I hope it's amazing. Their Synthex is amazing. We'll see.
Interesting. I know, Gaz. I think BT's right there. I mean, there is this issue, isn't there, of the physicality and the just trying to Well, not only that, but it's so hard to make a multi-voice, multi-oscillator analog synthesizer. I mean, you know, Moog 1. Classic example, you know, that still has issues. They still haven't quite tinkered with it right. I mean, it's improving, but I mean, if they can't get it absolutely bang on first time, I mean, where does, you know, what does that leave the rest of us? It's almost impossible it's like an impossible goal, you know.
I mean,
go on, sorry. Go on, Robbie.
No, go for it.
Oh, go on, you've got more of an interesting point to make.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the biggest joy I've had this year is getting the Udio Super 6, and part of the joy of that is that it's the build quality and the kind of physical nature of that instrument is just as much of a joy as the sound of it, and probably that's the nearest I'm going to get to a Jupiter 8, you know, in terms of as an instrument that's been built with no kind of shortcuts and designed to be absolutely, you know, amazing, down to the fits, the sliders, the pots, everything about it. And you know, so, you know, to me, it's not necessarily about having an analog polysynth. It's just about having a beautifully built instrument that makes you want to sort of learn it and play it. And so, you know, probably my kind of lust for getting a Jupiter 8 probably has been a little bit kind of taken away by that instrument, I would say.
That's an interesting point because, I mean, again, that's got FPGA oscillators in it, hasn't it? They just bypass that and go, well, sod that. Let's not worry about it. Let's just because, I mean, even to the point of, it's not just the oscillators; it's getting the tracking right across the filters. You know, if you want to play the filter, it's like if you've got a filter per voice or even 2 filter per voices, just having that be in tune across the entire keyboard if it's analog is a nightmare, as well as the oscillators. And because what often happens is you trigger, and then there's just this pitch that moves around depending on which voice card you're currently hitting, and that's across all of them. I don't know, BT, I don't know whether that's actually the same issue. I mean, do you get that with the Jupiters and the OBXs as well? I mean, then when they're not calibrated, I guess you do. It must be the same thing.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the OBX. One of the most incredible things about the OBX is how in the portamento drifts differently per voice. So, and it's kind of famous for that. It makes that huge THX kind of sound. I use that, Robbie, on the One to Love You. There's that, the big drifting portamento line. But yeah, they're all calibrated. No matter how good you calibrate these synths, you could never calibrate them perfectly. And that's part of the magic. It's like you play a middle C 5 times, however many voices there are, or you play a minor triad. Every one of those voices, the filter's slightly different. The envelopes are slightly different. The tuning's a little wonky, and it makes for magic.
Okay, I've got a theory here. Isn't that basically what MPE is, Gaz? I mean, because to play MPE with that great a skill is almost impossible, right?
That's very interesting because that is one of the things that the black corporations. How do you call it? What's it called? It's got a funny name, isn't it? This Jupiter 8?
ISE-nin. It's not actually on their main page yet. It's not listed on their page, but
full MPE support in that then. So it's like, oh, okay, that kind of gives it a
maybe that's going to cover up the fact that all the oscillators are out of tune.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was just going to say that.
I mean, would you agree, Bit Brian, that the Jupiter 8 as a synth? I mean, obviously, I've played Howard's loads of time. Is as a synth and as an object in front of you, and the way it's built, it's so much better built than even lots of its contemporaries, and even a lot of the classics people love, like Prophets and stuff. As an instrument, it's just like there's something about that instrument that's just like it's just built like a tank, and it just feels
built
like.
To tour, but it was built. It was built to tour for the '80s musician, wasn't it? I mean, that's what it was for.
That's right. And that you don't get that with hardly any other synth, I don't think.
I've got a question for the panel. What is the best digital recreation then? Because obviously this exists in a few places. Obviously the Boutique and in the Roland Cloud.
Arturia and
Arturia the Tau one's amazing.
The what?
Tau of Jupiter 8 is really good. In fact, Howard was raving to me about how good it was. They do the Juno, the Uno 62.
I'm just looking.
Good.
Let's see if I can find that. Is that this guy? This thing?
They've done Jupiter 8 and it's really good.
Okay. Well, let's put that in. I'll put that link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Good shout.
Yeah. I mean, the Arturia one gets better. It's had about 3 iterations, hasn't it? The new version has got a new iteration.
It's very juicy on the because I remember trying to use it, and I mean, as it should be. There's no reason it shouldn't use loads of CPU because it's trying to be a super mega polysynth, but it's quite power hungry. I seem to remember. That's the thing.
Yeah, we use it in our live. That's what we use live for the touring. Is the Arturia Jupiter 8 and the Tal Uno 60, 62, or is Uno 64?
Ah, okay. Yeah. Good question, Gaz. Yeah. I mean, because I've just done. The sound of soft synths is just anybody who maybe isn't. It's like gaming, isn't it? You look at a computer game and go, oh yeah, that's not very good, is it? And then you that sort of makes your mind up for like the next 10 years, and then 10 years later you see it and you go, oh my god, it's like real life. And that sort of happened in synthesizers as well. Because I just did the Anna 2 bundle, which was just a thing I did for Slate Digital, and I was just the kind of like the presence and the quality of the saturation and the effects, it just made me kind of go, wow, this is great, and I got the same from the Arturia Pigments is also another great sounding system. So this, and as we have more power in the computer, the software versions are perfectly acceptable. I mean, but you're right, Brian, and BT, in many ways, it's like if you make it in software, you can then introduce as much wonk or accuracy as you want, and that's part of the art as well, right?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, where I see software synths so valuable and excelling remarkably are techniques other than subtractive synthesis. I mean, it's kind of what, our heroes from, the 60s, 70s, and 80s were dreaming about with additive synthesis, granular synthesis, wavetable, all different kinds of physical modeling, car+strong synthesis. These are the things that a computer is phenomenal at. When it comes to raw subtractive synthesis, I just have to pry my Jupiter 8 out of my cold, dead hands. There's nothing like it. It's really not.
Sure. Okay.
When you were reviewing the boutique, though, Nick, you used a micrometer, didn't you, to measure the amount of travel in the sliders?
There wasn't much in the JP08. It was literally, because it's not even. It's a kind of unique fader that I've never seen before. I think it's, if anyone remembers the really tiny format 22-channel graphic EQs that weren't designed, that were designed to be fixed once, and they have about this much travel. That's kind of. Yeah, it's impossible to have any level of accuracy there. I just do need to have got to fit this in, and then we can move on. But I just thought it was interesting to put up. I don't know how much it's going to be. Anyway, this is the Modal Electronics Cobalt 8, which I would thoroughly recommend you check out as well. 8-voice extended analog, virtual analog synth. Innovative oscillator with 34 algorithms, morphable 4-pole ladder filter, 29 endless encoders for real-time control, internal sequencer and arpeggiator. Great MPE support on this as well. Modal app for Mac, Windows, and iOS, Android, and VST3 and AU. Check it out at bit.ly/getmodal. It's well worth it. It's got I did some lovely patches for that, and I can thoroughly recommend it. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the way that technology is moving on, I mean, the stuff that you're involved in, BT, is obviously you're sort of seeing ahead of maybe what many of us are exposed to, and some of it's quite abstract. But where we are now, what we're seeing, there's an awful lot of stuff. Actually, one of them was quite interesting. This was another thing that you mentioned. This was the no, it's not this one. It's the fast plugins from Focusrite, and the Reveal was the one that you were particularly.
It's great.
Let me just see if I can.
It's incredible.
Let's just fast forward it to the Reveal. I think this is the last video. So I think it's like a spectral AI-powered ducker, frequency ducker, in basic terms. And the idea is it can move things out of the way in your mix. You could use it. I think it's only a side chain to another. So if you use the kick against the bass drum, you can't use it to expand the whole mix necessarily. I guess if you bust things, you probably could. Perhaps you could talk about that. I don't know, but it's an interesting idea. Robbie, did you just say it's brilliant?
No, I said it's brilliant because we were talking, BT and we were talking the other night, and he said you've got to get this. So I went out and it's fantastic. It's like he was saying. It's like Track Spacer on steroids. It kind of gets into all the gaps. Track Spacer doesn't really. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So how would you describe what it is? Is that about right? It analyzes the main audio and then applies that AI analysis to the sort of frequency ducking, and you've got some very basic broad controls, but you can go in a bit deeper. And I mean, how does it work just out of the box?
You go, Brian.
So basically, it's basically exactly what Robbie was saying. The thing that's unique about it to something like Track Spacer, which is just, down and dirty, works great, right? However, and it works great in a mix, it does have quite a bit of artifacts if you solo the tracks. This is so kind of gentle in a good way, but gets the bits out of the way that you want to move out of the way, and which we all know. I mean, in like these days, it's like, for most types of music, things can be complex in room, and so being able to get the vocal out of the way of the guitar part, or the polysynths out of the way of the drum overheads, it's just, this does that perfectly, and it does it like you said, Nick, by taking a sidechain input and analyzing it, so it knows what you're seeing in general, and then it just ducks all those exact bits. It's brilliant. It's one of my favorite plugins in a long time.
Interesting. I mean, they've really gone for the. It's like a £5.99 UK pounds a month for 15 months. So it's a sort of subscription for a fixed period after which you own it. So you can try it for a bit. If you don't like it, then you can kind of return. So I think it ends up costing you about £90, which is, in terms of a single function plugin like this, is a little on the expensive side. They do an EQ and a compressor as well, which has similar sort of underlying core technology, but it sort of simplifies things. Gaz, I don't know. I mean, have you? The thing about this, some of this stuff, I mean, it's like sometimes mixes are hard. People are saying, well, if AI does it, what's the point in doing it? But actually, some things that need to be done are very difficult technically to achieve, and so that doesn't necessarily require skill. It's more patience, perhaps.
Well, iZotope approached this in a slightly different way, but similar principle with Neutron. As the
track assistant.
Yeah. I was thinking a good name for this would be kind of liposuction or liposuction, suck out the fat.
Track lipo.
That's amazing, yeah.
But what I found in practice, though, just myself really, that I sort of dabbled with it a little bit with the iZotope method. But just ultimately, I keep coming back to my old way of working, really, which is just using lots of EQ, lots of bandpass, and lots of low pass and high pass filters, and sort of and automation, just lots and lots of automation. And I suppose, obviously, that is more time consuming. So I probably should embrace working this way, especially as a lot of the mixes that I tend to do, especially if it's my own stuff, tends to get very dense and complex with lots and lots of things going on. So I'm going to have a look at this. I think that's quite an interesting business model, that $5.99. So you're not... Yeah, it's sort of...
I agree.
It's a way of getting some money coming into the company...
But you own it in the end, yeah.
But you own it in the end. So,
yeah.
Because I don't like the subscription model typically because of the, when you getting locked out, the idea of being locked out of projects in the future if you've decided not to carry on with the subscription, But so I'd be curious to see if this takes off and if that way of monetizing plugins kind of works, and I feel that that's an all right price, actually. Personally, I think that seems
okay, fair
right.
dues. Yeah, it feels somehow fairer. Sorry, BT, you were saying, were you coming in there?
I just say.
I'm sorry. You've got very similar pitched voices and similar sounding rooms. I'm sorry about that. Robbie.
I was going to say, it's interesting, isn't it? I remember when the iZotope stuff came out, we talked about this, and I remember saying on the show, I don't want to use that, I just want to use, I use my own skills, I don't want to be told how to do something, and, like some noddy automatic thing to do this, that, and the other. But I think it's kind of like a sort of I think now you realise that certain tools like this, certain tools like the Oak Sound, Soothe, and all those kind of things, those tools are far beyond what you can do with just your traditional methods, and they're kind of really high-end tools that take advantage of the massive computing power we've got available to us to do jobs that we couldn't do to mixes before. So to me, it's a case of using all the skills you've got with your traditional methods and then trying to embrace these things on top just to kind of get the edge on your mixes, and get squeeze that extra bit of kind of whatever you're trying to do, clarity, whatever out of it. I think I embrace them. I don't see them as a cheat. I just see them as like an extra way of just trying to sort of get ahead of the game.
Interesting. Actually, that reminds me, we've also got a little promo of our own, which I think I'm going to play now, because we've got the. I'm not entirely sure what it's called. I was thinking about Sonic One or Sonic Team, Sonic. I don't know. Anyway, I'll let Gaz and Andy explain.
Hello, and welcome to this little feature about the upcoming Sonicstate compilation album. Now, this is the first compilation of contributors to Sonicstate that's ever taken place, really. So tell us a little bit more then about the genesis of this idea and what's exactly
that's
happened.
Pretty much it. I thought, A, it's lockdown, let's have something to do, and B, there's so much talent. And all the people that have been involved in Sonic over the years now, we've never actually combined it into some showcase. I thought, right, it's about time it happened.
And what a whopper it is. It's a 18-track album that runs for nearly an hour and a half.
I didn't expect to get so much, and such great quality too. It's been fantastic.
So that'll be coming soon, as they say. Stay tuned. We'll be posting some new stuff about it. I noticed didn't use any clip of my track in there, but there are 18 to choose from, and a lot of them are way better than mine. But that's all right.
He used his own track. I heard his one. Shameless promotion.
I didn't make that promo.
I'm joking.
Nick's track's one of my favourites, so anyway. But I tell you what, though, it is. It's a great track, yeah. But I mean, it's an amazing little compilation. Well, not little, massive compilation, because of the diversity across it. And I mean, it's a bit of a masterclass from Yoad. Yoad's tracks on there is like,
I know.
It's good.
I mean, you listen to Yoad's track. I heard it, and it was kind of like, okay. Can I withdraw mine now, please? Can we just release his?
And and Ty's tune is really interesting as well. Because I won't spoil it because actually. Oh, go on in. You can say it.
No, I won't. I won't say anything. I'm just going to say, BT. Honestly, Yoad is one of the finest mix engineers I've ever heard. I've never heard anything kind of. We went to his studio and I listened. He's got a pair of ATC SCMs, and he played a mix. I've just been working on this, and I was just kind of, oh my god, that. I know what a good mix sounds like, and he knows how to make a good mix. He's a really good mix engineer, amongst many other things. If you're ever looking for a mix, BT, I would heartily recommend checking him out if you get the opportunity. But it's not about touting for work, is it? So that'll be coming soon. It's going to be on a Bandcamp. I think I don't know the exact date. I think we're aiming for the 16th, but we want to hit it on the Bandcamp Friday. So that's the idea. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Right. That's the plan. And there's also a series of interviews that I've conducted with Andy, with all, well, not all, but with a lot of the contributors. And so there's lots of insights and lots of information about how the different approaches have taken place. So so there's a whole bundle of stuff coming connected with this release. So really excited about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And some of that will be available to everybody, and some of it will be part of our Patreon offering, which I'm going to plug again just because I can. There we go. Patreon.com/Sonicstate if you're interested in joining us. More the merrier, obviously. And like I say, we put ad-free versions of all of our stuff, including Sonic Talk with the pre-show now. I've figured out a way to make it all work, and so that YouTube... Yeah, anyway. I'll let you go and figure that out yourselves. Is there anything? Does anybody have any strong feet? Because we've got another couple of. Have we got another topic? I'm just looking for it. Oh, there was the IR designer. I've got to find out what video that is, because if I press the wrong button. Number 3. Come in, please.
The Super Cabinet is the revolutionary IR processor.
This is quite a dry
graphically
presentation.
browse the IR libraries.
But the interesting part about this is you can take the IR of the cabinets and the microphones and the amplifiers are all time phase aligned, so you can merge and morph between them in a really interesting way and create stuff that doesn't exist in the real world. Now, I'm not a massive reamping person, but I know that this technology is just really, really cutting edge again, and it's
and loaded into your hardware.
Because not everybody can turn everything up loud. This just looks like a really good way of processing. It doesn't have to be guitars. Obviously, you could do all sorts of things with this, but it just seems like a very powerful tool. Now, when I posted this, BT, you actually said, "Oh yeah, that's really cool." So you've obviously used it somewhere along the line. I'm just going to paste the link in the show notes. Do you have experience of this? This is the Overloud Super Cabinet, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, just full disclosure, I love reamping things, but I don't have many amps. In fact, I have 2. I've got a nice old, really good sounding AC30 that I actually got in England in the 90s, but it's a 60s AC, and I've got an 80s JC120, which is, of course, that kind of like Smith's type sound. But I use quite a bit, not just for guitars, but for synths, for drum machines, all different sorts of stuff. I'll tell you what, this thing blew my mind for the exact reason you said, Nick, is that ability to morph between amps. I just found myself making really musical sounding stuff. We all know that, one of the best to do synths in particular, because I know we all love synthesizers, one of the best things you can do with them is saturation, mild distortion, reamping, things like that. This is a killer tool to put in the arsenal, this one.
Oh, no, I've like I said, I haven't really used it, but I know that because Dominic, Mr. Wiggly, he's done a kind of reamping type thing. It seems to be a very popular way of adding an extra bit of life and stuff. I know, Gaz, I mean, you work with a lot of live instruments. I suppose it's not such a necessary thing, but sometimes you might want to change the character of some of those things. Do you use reamping or modelling in any way on those?
I have done quite a bit, yeah. And obviously, you know, it's always the thing about getting the kind of right impedance inputs into the amps and stuff, you know, and I've got a little box that does that. That's just a little homemade thing, but there, you know, it is a really interesting thing. I mean, guitarists particularly are incredibly fussy about their tone, and you know, I think maybe go a little overboard with it, but they're allowed to. but yeah, I mean, it is a really interesting thing. Like just putting a simple drum machine out through an amplifier and back in, and then suddenly it's amazing. Like I like doing overheads off drums actually through a guitar amp. Is really cool. If I haven't got a grot mic up for the session itself. You know, doing things like that. Haven't done it for a while, but I have set up behind me. I've got a pair of valve amps and that are permanently mic'd up, so I can feed a stereo mix out and through it. And they're identical amps as well. Well, one's red and one's blue, but but I don't do it a lot. I think, but when I do it, I always think, I should do this more.
Yeah, isn't it always the way? I suppose so. I mean, Robbie, I suppose something like this. I mean, this is probably something that you is it one of your secret weapons? Because I mean, you do a lot of processing on your synths.
I know. Well, I'll tell you what though. But for this album I'm making out here in Ireland, the guitarist is in Vancouver, and he got himself a Line 6 Helix, you know, all amping, reamping stuff, and then Line 6 sent me the software, which is the Helix software. So he's been sending me the parts, you know, amped up as he wants them, and then it automatically records a parallel dry feed. So I've been getting the dry feed, being able to do all time correction on everything, and then just being able to reamp everything after I've done all that with the same sounds that he's been designing his end. So that's been like a revelation for this project. It's like you can't, you know, once everything's saturated with distortion, you can't find the transients or anything to kind of time it all up. So when he sends it over and it's just like some twangy guitar going dang, 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 you can get in and do all the timing and then, you know, get it sounding like some sort of behemoth heavy metal rock god.
I suppose the thing is also you can, because that part would have been played into that specific sound, so all of the bite and the dig, the dynamics are actually built into the twangy guitar part before it hits, right? Yeah,
but I do like BT was saying, I love sending synths through all sorts of particularly sort of saturations and overdrives and amps and stuff. So for years I've used all sorts of things like, you know, speakerphone, you know, audio, all sorts of things like that to try and create character.
Right. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Sorry, all that button pressing was, I just want to say thanks to Wagyu, because it doesn't show the actual sticker, it shows a description of the sticker. So Wagyu put a pair character lifting some weight saying keep it up, which is very descriptive. It's very descriptive, and thanks Wagyu, but it doesn't show the sticker. I can't, that's beyond the technology I have in my position.
Nick, there's one last thing that we should possibly just briefly talk about was WWDC 21. The Apple.
The Apple. Some more Apple stuff. Surround sound.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also I think the one thing that's quite interesting is the way that you can use your iPad and Macs and just sort of, but you know, just move things just with the same mouse. You can just, as you move the mouse across
workflow stuff.
Yeah, and then, you know, so if you've got two computers, you know, you can just with the one control just go between the two and onto the iPad as well. So I was kind of curious about that with because I like to use an iPad as a means to record, just do my you know, rehearsals and various things like that, and so I thought, oh, okay, that's quite nice. That's quite a nice workflow thing. I was trying to think if there was anything else that was relevant to musicians. There's not an awful lot, but the spatial audio stuff is meant to be really, really good.
There's quite a lot of stuff. They've just introduced the spatial audio and also the high resolution audio, both of which I think kind of basically make their current crop of speakers, headphones, and hardware obsolete.
Well,
so presumably they'll be selling us something new, right?
I was going to say, I got the AirPod Maxes, and they're amazing headphones, the big ones.
All right.
They're nice headphones, those. Yeah.
Sweet.
So,
if anyone's looking for
audio.
good headphones.
Right, okay. Well, worth it.
They do spatial audio.
Yeah, so that's meant to sound like really, really like you're listening out of speakers. So, I just wondered if that would be good for mixing. I was curious. I don't know. I've not tried it.
Oh, there we go. There's a pint from Jan Slim. Slim, I can't pronounce that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about the lossless audio last week with Dom. This week, but it seemed like just generally the whole WWC thing was a bit of a kind of like, here's a load of software features which seem to be really kind of good for what for their suite of things, but in many ways they're again sort of taking ownership of stuff that other people have been doing for years and sort of presenting it better, which is what Apple are extremely good at. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just the way it goes. So I know, BT, anything really exciting that's sort of excited you about the new developments? It was all pretty much iOS as far as I could tell, and a bit on the other stuff, apart from developer nightmares, I'd imagine.
Yeah, there's a bunch of kind of there's some cool development stuff. I won't bore you guys with all that, but I mean, like Gaz was saying, the thing I'm most excited about that they announced is the spatial audio in the AirPod Pros, whatever they're called, Air Max Pros, whatever, is just what a great differentiator from Spotify. I think Spotify really struggle to keep up with some of this. I mean, I'm certainly excited to release surround sound albums that work on headphones. It's like, that's a really rad differentiator, I think, for artists that, and also too, Apple pays a fair royalty. So I think that's great. Nice distinctor for artists. Put out some surround sound stuff for headphones.
That's a good idea. Well, I wonder, we'll start getting, presumably you'll be able to mix in native, this surround audio will come straight out of Logic when they update that. I mean, I imagine they must build it in, because if they're playing it back, you better have to be able to create it.
I'm still waiting though for them to do low latency wireless audio drivers. So when they take away our headphone jacks,
yeah, well, that's the problem. This is the discussion we were having last week. The problem is high definition audio and Bluetooth are completely incompatible because Bluetooth compresses. So you're not going to get that. Yeah. So the latency.
You could do it over Wi-Fi though, couldn't you?
Yeah, I suppose you could, but then again, that's a contentious band of radio frequencies. So it's not. You can't guarantee that that's going to be uninterrupted. Mind you, Bluetooth is hardly any better, is it, frankly? I sometimes have a problem. I put my phone in my back pocket, I put an earbud in my these aren't Apple products, and I put one in my, and it doesn't make it through my massive torso. I mean, that's ridiculous. It can't get around my stomach. I mean, it's not that big, but Jesus. I don't know if that's an image I want to leave you all with, but you brought it up. You take your chances.
It's a good place to end.
So yeah, maybe so. So BT, what's next for you? What are you kind of what are you going to do after this? I mean, because you got a great result with that NFT sale. I mean, it's kind of, I guess that's like a decent album sales kind of fee, great. So are you going to do more of that stuff? Is it going to make you excited to kind of go, yeah, let's do that?
Most definitely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have tons of projects, blockchain projects in the works. My next album is a blockchain project, and some insane software coming too that I'm really excited privately to give you guys, and I'll definitely come back and talk about that. But yeah, actually, my lovely wife is yelling at me. She's like, baby, you have another interview. You gotta go.
Okay, all right. Well, we better. Okay. So, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but listen, I think that all the musicians that listen to this, please go check out what's possible there, because I really believe it's a future for all of us. I think it's something to get really excited about. And Gaz, to what you said, I want to send you some white papers. So, and it's a conversation we need to have a bit, but I think it's going to free musicians. I think it's going to free generations and generations of musicians, and it's something to be really excited about. So,
well, that's a good
thanks
place.
for having me today.
You're
guys.
welcome. If you've got to jump off, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We'll head over to
Okay,
Robbie.
guys, I'll see you soon.
See ya. So, Robbie,
Okay,
I guess you probably got to get back to work. Are you getting paid by the track per day?
Yeah, no, we're doing right in the middle of a big orchestral section in the middle of a track. So
right.
Got to go timpani drums now.
Good. Well, that sounds like a great way to spend a summer's evening. Thank you very much for joining us, Robbie. Very much looking forward to your material when it's when we can finally listen to it. Thanks for joining us.
See you soon.
See ya. And also, Gaz, thanks for joining us too. Of course, if people haven't had enough Gaz already, they can have more of you tonight with your Gaz Williams show. Did you 8 p.m. Did you say who was on? I'm trying to remember. Say it again. You didn't. I didn't. You're doing the thing. You're doing the thing on the thing.
The thing on the thing, and just because this thing is a really kind of exciting effects unit in many ways, and I just we did actually, did we not? We covered it, didn't we, in one of the Sonic talks, and we were like, actually, wow, that looks great because you can mix and match, can't you? You can put whatever you want in each pedal, and you could have five delays, 5 reverbs, and from the last update you can have 5 loopers as well. So all of that stuff is good, but there are a few deal breakers. So,
you're going to reveal that later.
I could reveal that later, or I could reveal that.
I think you should
reveal it late.
Yeah, I think you should save it for your show. I mean, that's the that's fair.
But it is dead good, and it sounds good. So we'll be putting some synths through it and some various bits and bobs, and exploring what you can do with it. So that's what my show tonight will be.
Let me just post the link to that in the chat. There we go. That's to Gaz's channel. Well, Gaz, it's just me and you live to say goodbye. Unfortunately, we haven't got any unflattering reaching to disconnect photos, because sometimes you do get those. I'm quite often, that's the one thing I find with the Patreon, when I'm uploading stuff to Vimeo, I've got no control over the poster frame, and the last one was like. So, that's just them's the breaks. But there we go. But Gaz, lovely to have you. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
That's it for this week. We will see you all on the next show. That's it. Take care. Bye-bye now.